Hello, Katrina. How are you? Welcome.
Hello. Hi. How are all of you here at Psychic Access Talk Radio? Wow.
Yeah, we're doing great. The weather here is fantastic for me. Let me tell you, in California, I can't begin to, it's like summertime here. Sorry. The other hosts, Carmen, it's been bad snow weather, but yes. And Katrina is, yeah. I've been really looking forward to this show, and I wanted to tell people how I ran across you, how I found you. I wasn't looking, but it's almost like it was you were supposed to be the one I found for what you do. So do you want me to tell you the story?
I am very curious about how you found me because I'm not as familiar with the Psychic Access Network and other things that are being offered through your community. And so this is an opportunity for me to get to know you a little bit and hopefully for folks to get to know me a little bit.
If you're like I go out and stalk. I don't stalk people, but no. What I was doing, would I look for a guest? Would I look for subjects that I really like to do. That's how, just for me. And I always go to Amazon. I look over the books and whatever. It's not a particular book, and it wasn't tarot I was looking for, but suddenly I ran across your book, Transformative Tarot. And I go, that sounds interesting. That's different than everything. So I started to kind of look into it. Then I went to your website. Well, I read a little bit about you, and I go, oh, this woman's going to would be fantastic, because of the fact because things are changing, and everybody's kind of blending together. And you are, you have your degree in psychotherapy. I remember we spoke about this, but could you explain? You are a degree.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to,
Yeah.
Maureen. Because it can be confusing. There's so many titles and labels, and even in the tarot world, sometimes we're not completely certain about what to call ourselves. I noticed at the beginning of the show, some of the co-hosts were introducing themselves and saying, well, I do this, or this is my specialty, or this is my gift. So, I kind of fall under both of those categories. In the counseling or psychology world, the way we would describe me is that I have my Master's of Arts in Counseling Psychology. So I have that degree. And then also I've been part of a private modality program for the last 25 years, and that's called process-oriented psychology, which is more of a psychotherapeutic modality, which is very much influenced by the work of Carl Jung. And so in some ways, I'm not a Jungian technically, but I have a lot of Jungian influence. And then in the tarot world, it's interesting because I studied tarot as a solitary practitioner long before there were things like internet. We're talking over 40 years ago. And there weren't even that many books available. And so I taught myself a lot about tarot. But then when it came to doing readings for others, it just never occurred to me. I studied the tarot as a book of wisdom. And then about 24 years ago or something, people started asking me to do readings and to teach classes. And that's when I thought, okay, well, then I guess that's what the universe is asking me to do. And my natural inclination then was to offer tarot readings in a way that made sense to me in terms of my skill base and my training. And to distinguish it from maybe other styles that other people were using, that's when I actually started using the term tarot counseling. So that was I think about 23 years ago, I started using that term. And from there, I further distinguished it by calling it transformative tarot counseling because of my therapeutic background and the fact that I know from experience and what I eventually wrote about in my book that readings themselves can be so transformative, meaning they really can support change for people. So people make new choices, or they get a different perspective on their lives, or that they're willing to face things that might have been a little difficult for them to face before. And of course, it's not a substitute for straight ahead counseling or therapy or anything like that, but it definitely sometimes opens the door for people to then embrace taking more of a directed focus path for creating the changes they want to see in their life.
And that was another reason why I really wanted to, because, I myself I'm self-taught, there was internet, I think, but I didn't have any access to it. But the thing I was reading about you, I just was the way you approach the cards, and I started getting involved with them for my own. It was like a 78 program. Like it was like for me to understand and really get in tune with my not so good self either. Each of them, I drew pictures. So when I was reading about you, I said, this is a type of thing that I think is really lovely because there's a lot of different people. Anybody can learn to read them, I like how you say there's an approach. Would you say there's a directive or the predictive? Wait, predictive.
Well, in the
Different.
Tarot world, and even outside of the Tarot world, when we look at the collective, for instance, if we look at consensus reality, as we might call it, when we look from the outside in, most typically, if you bring up the thing about tarot or cards, people immediately think fortune telling, prediction, and things like that, which of course is a great deal of what does go on in the tarot community. But then there were a group of us who were doing things that didn't quite fit that definition. And even the definition and the portrayals in the media didn't even quite match how modern readers, even modern fortune tellers, might approach their work. So it just seemed very important to start looking at those contrasts and describing those differences so that people get a better and clearer idea of all the different opportunities and services and modalities that are available.
And we spoke about labels. I do want to address that because I love that. When we spoke, everybody, we did speak before, because the labels, and that's kind of like what we're talking about a bit here. Could you explain because, well, you're the
What
guest.
might I do? What I'm doing that might be a little different than the
Uh-huh. Yeah,
mainstream, for instance?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. So one of the things we do in counseling, for instance, that's a lot different than what maybe the typical or average tarot reader would do, is that we listen to our client and follow them as opposed to leading. And I know it sounds easy, but it's really a very, very subtle and challenging art to perfect, which means that we support our clients for the most part, finding their own solutions, sometimes coming up with their own conclusions. And in the tarot world, that goes into the realm of supporting the client to have their own personal and intuitive relationship with the cards and with their reading. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to come in and guide or tell some information about my knowledge or even my intuitive relationship with the cards and what it might mean for that client in their reading. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to showcase my knowledge. It means I'm going to let my thoughts and my impressions go on the back burner and really support the client and really listen to the client to where they go on their own journey of discovery. Can you
Tarot has
follow
lots.
that? Does that
Oh,
sound? I mean, I
absolutely.
realize some people probably already do that, and maybe they
Well,
don't call it a counseling style.
well,
But I think that's
yeah.
one of the things that really distinguishes a counseling style from maybe a reading style where somebody's interpreting the cards for their
Right.
client.
Well, and because I don't have a degree academically, I do the style of my favorite readings. When I do readings, everybody can hear me roar, is spiritual developing. I mean, you could get the relationships or business opportunities, but that is one of my favorite. I get a lot from that, but I give a lot of that. But because I've never, and there's that label stuff, because I don't feel I have the right, I guess, to feel that I could, offer or say as a counseling. Now I've had some people say, I don't want your counseling. I want you to be a psychic. I get that, the label stuff, but I feel the tarot is a symbolic record of human experience. Absolutely.
I would love for you to say that again, but maybe a little slower so everyone can
I
hear that.
will.
I love that saying from you.
I know. I will say it right now slower. Tarot is a symbolic record of human experience.
Isn't that amazing? It
It,
really
it helped
is.
me. It was life changing for me. That's how connected with him and that relationship started, and here I am. So
Right. It's also the mandala, of
Uh,
life, perhaps even of the universe. So it
mhm.
can represent in some way or another all those various aspects. And so then
Yes.
each of us as practitioners or readers or students of Tarot are going to be accessing it through our particular filter or lens. Kind of like that old story about the elephant, right? And the seven blind men. You know,
Yeah.
depending on how you approach the Tarot is what you're going to get back from it. So the same thing for those clients too, by the way. If the client approaches Tarot and is not, let's say, educated about the diversity of Tarot, they're probably going to make an assumption about what it is for or what it can do. And then I basically say, I hope that people find the reader that's the best match for them. And I think you almost have to be psychic to figure out who
Yeah.
to work with. But at the same time, I also believe that we as readers can educate the public, either through our readings, through our writing, through our networking, or just talking to folks in our neighborhood, and raising the bar of the diversity of understanding of what we can do with these amazing tools.
I agree. And there's four hosts, including myself, on the show, and I have Stephen is a tarot reader, and he's real different than the way I am, and I love his style. But he has a question, if you don't mind, he would like to ask you. It's a really good one. Would you mind?
Oh, please. Yeah, of course.
Yes, of course. Stephen, go for it.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Thank you, Katrina, for letting me butt in here and ask this question. But what I'm curious to know is whether or not the tarot is becoming more legitimate in psychiatric and psychological professional circles. Are professionals beginning to pick up this tool, A, and B, are they beginning to take it more seriously as a legitimate metric of subconscious activity? And C, are there any practitioners of psychology or psychiatry who might pick up this tool in private for their clients? That's what I would like to know, Katrina.
Okay. All right. Those are great questions. And I will try to speak to all of them. And I may not remember which was A or which was B or which was C. But
Sure,
here
no
we
problem,
go.
no problem.
Generally speaking, I can't speak for the entire psychiatric profession. So I'm going to give you that disclaimer right off the top of my head. But from talking to different clients and students and friends in the tarot world, and also my counseling friends outside of the tarot world, I have some general understandings I do believe I can share. Okay, so yes, there are stigmas, as there are stigmas in many areas of our day-to-day life, where tarot is relegated to a certain area and isn't necessarily embraced as an amazingly powerful tool that we know it to be. So even in the psychological realm, there are people, whenever you work for, let's say, a larger group of people, where they don't necessarily honor diversity, there's always going to be those smaller voices, the unheard people, the peoples whose beliefs or thoughts or priorities are minimized. And so you're going to find that in the psychological realm as well. So tarot, in that sense, is going to be the minority. And then psychology and its tenets and its philosophies and its belief system will be the majority. Fortunately, there's a lot of people in the professional counseling or psychology realm who have studied both tarot and psychology and see that there's a lot of overlapping understandings and also treatments in terms of using them one way or the other. Now, in terms of actual professional counseling people who utilize tarot cards in their practice, I think we get into an even smaller group now. Like, for instance, I'll speak for myself. I will not sit down with an actual established counseling client and suddenly whip out the cards, because from a counseling point of view, that could be considered unethical. A, I may not know what that person's belief system is, and it could be considered a boundary violation for them. B, it may not be what they're asking or looking for or what they could relate to. There's a lot of reasons I wouldn't do that. What are the exceptions to that? When might I do that? It actually did happen to me one time where I was in my office, which I actually share with this person shares her office with me, actually. She's delightful. And I don't bring my tarot cards with me to my counseling sessions, but she has a deck that I know is in the office. So one of my counseling clients showed up and actually wanted a tarot reading. Now, I knew this person really needed a counseling session, but they were very, let's say, we have a way of describing this in my line of work, where they're primary message or communication was, I want a tarot reading. But the secondary, the sort of like the nonverbal communication, is that my life is a mess and I don't know what's going on and I need a perspective, which is something we can do through counseling. But since the primary request was I want to do it through tarot cards, I made an exception. I pulled out the cards, and on the spot, I actually made up a chakra reading based on the 7 chakras as described by Carolyn Mace in her Anatomy of the Spirit, because that's a very well-rounded chakra interpretation that covers all these different areas of someone's life. So that was an exception because the client specifically asked for it. Now, do I have tarot clients who come to me for counseling, or counseling clients who come to me for tarot readings? Absolutely, yes. But one of the things that we learn as professionals, probably you as tarot readers, definitely me as a counselor, especially living in a very small village on the Oregon coast, is confidentiality. Very, very important to us. And really protecting the privacy as well as the content and the identification of our clients. So if we learn how to wear different hats, then I tell my clients, if I see you in town and we're at the grocery store, I will not say hello to you unless you say hello to me first. That's how far it goes in terms of protecting privacy and confidentiality. If I'm at a psychic fair like we have here in our little town, I started years ago, and some other folks have picked it up and kept it going in a beautiful way. People know I'm going to be sitting there at my little table doing my tarot readings, and so sometimes a client will sit down and get a reading. So basically I differentiate. I wear different hats. If somebody wants a tarot reading, they need to make a tarot appointment with me. If someone wants a counseling session, they need to make a counseling session with me. But here's the deal, though. Because I have both skills and I have both hats in my closet or out of my closet, then I will then start off with the counseling. But in the background, I have so much wisdom. I have 40 years of studying the tarot. And so I can use my tarot wisdom as I also bring in my counseling skills working with that client. It works the other way around, too. I'm sitting down with a tarot client, but sometimes my counseling skills need to kick in. But here's the deal, though, folks, and I do talk about this in my book, is understanding where those subtle boundaries are. And so I will literally say to a tarot client, I'll say, do you mind if I put my counseling cap on for a moment? And if I have their permission to go into a realm that isn't what we sat down and identified as the purpose of our session, then I feel like, okay, I've got permission to go a little further with this in an area that actually resembles more of a counseling session. Now, I can do that because I've got the qualifications and the experience to do that, and I truly understand and try to respect people's boundaries as much as possible. So that's one of those areas where it takes practice, it takes skill. And I know for me, what's been a great benefit in my life the last 25 some odd years is having supervision and training from other people in the counseling world, in the psychotherapeutic world, to help me learn those boundaries and those skills of observation. Now, of course, anybody who's sitting down in a tarot reading is, you know, if you've been doing this for years, you're going to learn some of those skills just from experience, just from life, or maybe you were born with special skills. You know, if you're an empath, then you're already perhaps feeling in to the emotions of your client. And maybe you have very beautiful, skillful ways of tying that back into the reading in a way that doesn't necessarily go beyond or push a boundary for your client. Now, there are, I have some friends who are psychologists and even psychiatrists who on occasion will bring the cards into their session, but again, they get the client's permission and it just seems absolutely appropriate in that moment. And can I add a little bit more to this, Stephen?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is just a personal perspective of my own, and I don't know if I addressed your A, B, and your C, but
You did.
okay, but I think one thing I didn't really focus on too much is this idea of legitimizing, but I will come back to that. So with tarot, let's just say most people, even in the tarot world, already assume that working with a card is a matter of interpreting the card. In other words, you can either learn what the card means and then regurgitate it verbatim, you know, just repeat it verbatim, Or the cards themselves speak to you in a language that's unique between you and the cards. And so you're going to bring your personal understanding or channeling of that tarot wisdom into your session. Or my tarot counseling style is actually more like a counseling session because the focus isn't so much on the cards. The focus is on that relationship, the relationship between myself, the client, and the cards. And so that's where I'm going to place the greater importance or light in my work. So the cards are incidental, and if anything, they're just a catalyst. And that in itself does resemble what many people do in a more psychotherapeutic style of counseling. So you've heard of Rorschach tests, I'm sure. So a Rorschach test is basically an image that is meant to inspire a particular reaction, but you don't know what that reaction is going to be until you hear it. The reaction that that client has to the image that 1,000 other people have looked at and had other reactions to tells you more about the client than it does about the image. That's the way I work with the tarot. It's more of an inspiration. It's like waking up from a dream and tapping into that person's personal dream symbolism as opposed to opening up a dream interpretation book and doing sort of a one-size-fits-all type of interpretation of the card. So that's just what makes my work a little different.
So you're like, what do you see in this card? Not so much what I think the interpretation is, but is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. But I won't say it quite the way you said it because that can put people on the spot sometimes. So let me share with folks. If you maybe you're already doing this, or if you'd like to experiment with this, I'd be happy to share it with you. So, there's this question that people ask sometimes: when you deal out your cards, are they face down or are they face up? Right? All right. So I'm one of those folks who actually only pulls out one card at a time, and it's face down. And the reason being is I am preparing my client to have their first impression, which, by the way, is their intuition totally plugged in. Just the fact that I'm doing this ritual with them opens up their intuition without even using that word. So I'll prepare the client and I'll say, before I turn this card over, I invite you, as I turn it over, to notice the first thing you notice about it. Do you have a feeling? Is there an association, maybe a memory of some sort, or even a reaction? Maybe you see something, you just don't even like it. But please share with me that very, very first impression, and feel free to touch the card if you like. So already I'm letting them know that what my boundaries are, or where I don't have boundaries, so I'm preparing them so that we have a safe container around our work, and at the same time I'm inviting them to play with the cards with me and to go outside of the box. And so let's say the person turns the card over and they are immediately drawn to this face in the center, and they'll go, oh, well, I see this face. All right, well, that's very neutral and that's very to the point. I see a face. So then in my counseling style, I can use some of my skills to draw out more information. And I can say, wow, what kind of face? So is it whose face, or what's going on with that face? I'll know where to take the questioning, by the way, by things I've already picked up about the client. So I'm kind of like a feedback loop where I'm feeding the client's material back to them to take them more deeply into their experience. And sometimes I'll even apply things that we use in Jungian psychology, which is amplification. And so that's really a skill there. I'm amplifying a symbol that shows up and inviting my client to personalize it in some way. And from there, the story starts unfolding. And then as the other cards come out, we see the journey that they're on in that moment. Because to me, the overall reading is not a report. It's a journey.
That's fascinating. Thank you very much for that's a question I've always wanted to ask a practitioner who is also a psychologist. So thank you.
You're right. And please keep in mind, I can't speak for everyone, but that's certainly my style.
Understood.
And what I've been doing for 25 years. And what I
come on,
teach.
Katrina, you can. Come on, really?
And you know what? And it's not to say I don't occasionally have a client who just sits down, and even though I might have given them my spiel might be something like, because I can usually sense as a course I'm intuitive, just like everyone else, especially the more
Right.
you work with the tarot, the more intuitive you become. But let's say I sit down and I already sense this person is looking for a fortune-telling session. And so I might say to them, when I work with the cards, I'm looking for guidance. I won't be able to make predictions or to tell you what to do with your life. So that's like my little disclaimer. But let's say halfway through the reading, they go, but I'd still really like to get an answer to this. And so I'll just kind of clear my energy, and I'll tune into my intuition to see which way to go with this. And occasionally, and this is what I really enjoy about studying things like the Lenormand cards, the Petit Lenormand, is I'll say, well, maybe we can go to the Lenormand cards and see what they say about it. And that gives me absolute permission to go into a straight ahead, more of a fortune-telling style, and to see how that interfaces with my client's question. So I feel good because then they're getting it from both sides. They're getting the counseling style, which invited them to take more responsibility and to be more engaged in their process. But then they still have this burning question that needs to be satisfied. Fine. Then we use the Lenormand and we find out a little bit more from its point of view what's going on. And it's ironic how much they overlap. And so that's been fun for me to see this overlap between what the tarot is saying and what the Lenormand says.
It's a win-win to me. Absolutely. I mean, really, that'd be a win-win if I was the client coming to you. And this is what's so great. You're like the pie. You are. I don't want to say the wrong wording, but I think you'll understand. To me, where I'm sitting so far, and that's why you just grabbed at me, everything about you, your book, and and when I went on there, you're like the pioneer. You've even trademarked your tarot. You're like the pioneer for those that are academically, for those that have the degrees. So you're the pioneers, and that's what I find. To me, like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but you're out there and about where I'm not around the people that that are, how do you say? Well, I know, you know what I mean. It's not like you'd meet one therapist to the next that would have the same openness. And like you said to me, you've always been a little bit different, and I loved what you said. You said to me, it's almost like I'm almost kind of like the type of person. It's like I don't have to go by the labels or go by whatever is conform to anything.
Well, it's about, and this is something I hope each of us do. We do a little soul searching and we go, what is my most authentic self? What is my calling? What is my soul purpose? I mean, this stuff I found out over years and years of doing tarot readings and counseling, that I would say 99% of the folks that I work with, that's what they're looking for. That's what they're really trying to plug into. And once you align with that soul purpose or that authenticity, then the road before you becomes more clear. That doesn't mean it becomes more easy. So now I'm going to go back to something you said a moment there, Maureen, is that I'm going to agree with you. What should I say? I'm not going to say it with a lot of humility, but there's definitely humility here, is I do feel like a pioneer, and I want to own that because it's been a lot of work. And whenever you're stretching the envelope or creating a diversity that wasn't so obvious in the first place, it's risky. You don't know if people are going to reject you or misunderstand you or dislike you or feel like that you're a threat or that you're trying to overpower them, or, there's all kinds of fears and reactions and judgments that can come out. But I feel really fortunate that I have a very strong spiritual foundation and that I really checked with myself so deeply to make sure this was truly my authentic path. And that is what gave me permission to go out and kind of push that envelope and start having those conversations with people and to actually try to represent a different point of view and be willing to take any kind of criticisms, because of course when people criticize you, that's actually an opportunity for critique, and whenever there's critique, there's an opportunity for learning. So I welcome everybody's input.
No,
that's how I learn.
I loved how you just explain that, because that's exactly right. Right now I think it's a good time. We need to we are going to take a commercial break. Just for a minute, and we'll be right back. And it's a commercial break with our sponsor, PsychicAccess.com. So everybody hold on. We'll be right back.
A new era in psychic services has begun. psychicaccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at psychicaccess.com.
And we're back, and we're speaking with Katrina, and I'm just so pleased and happy and honored to have you here with us, joining us, and just letting us all in on what's going on with you. Are the pioneer. We were talking about that, and you should stand. You know, it's yours to hold, to own.
And I'm a pioneer in many ways, but I can't help that. In fact, any of you who do tarot numerology, I'll just tell you, I'm a chariot in a tower. So
that's
my job to stir things up and to go into new territory. You know, and that's Katrina, another part of being authentic, is you align with that soul purpose with the tarot. It gives you permission to do all kinds of stuff.
The chariot and the tower is mine as well. And when I was going through my 20-something years ago, I love them. And they're both, 16 and 7 numerology wise, and they're both very interesting. And I didn't talk to you about this. Of course, again, this is why I cruised over your way, the energy of you, because the tarot and the tower and the chariot is also mine. And it's
us chariot gals, we just love each other.
And the tower, I'm ready for it. Let me at it. Just read.
All right. Hey, well, when we had our little break there, got an interesting question from Stephen. I hope it interests the rest of you. He was asking a little bit, if I could say a little bit about Carl Jung and synchronicity. And I'm going to say yes, but I have my own theory. And so I can't speak specifically as a Jungian and what Carl Jung would say about that, but I'm going to try to put it into my own words and my own understanding. And this might also tie in with tarot and also some of the writings of other people's. Like, my head's already going in 5 different directions, so I'm going to try to pull it together here. So first off, what is synchronicity? I mean, a lot of us have a sort of everyday collective understanding, because it's fortunately, there's a lot of things that Carl Jung brought to our collective consciousness, including that term. Synchronicity is when 2 things appear to be happening around the same time that have a significance or meaning or a connection with each other that we could not have predicted and we didn't plan. Now, I believe what Jung was trying to say is that synchronicities are going on all the time. It's just that we, in our human sort of like cognitive thinking way of going about life, it's almost like having these little, I notice my hands are coming up like little blinders. It's almost like we have little blinders and we can only maybe look at what's in front of us or look at one thing at a time. But for those of us who work with tarot and other tools, metaphysical tools, or who just are very naturally psychic or intuitive, we're already tapping into that other realm of what other people would call synchronicity, because again, it's happening all the time. It's just a matter of whether you notice it. So for instance, if you're looking at the air around you, oh, wait a minute, you don't notice the air, do you? You breathe it, it goes into your body, it goes into your cells, it feeds your brain, but you don't necessarily see it. But you know it's there. Well, synchronicity is a little bit like that air. It's there all the time, and every now and then you notice it. Let's say you take a really deep breath, or maybe there's sunbeams going through your home, and you see that light going through the air. I mean, there's a variety of ways that we suddenly wake up, and we notice the greater awareness that is with us, but we're not necessarily always sensitive to. We don't necessarily have the radar for. We don't see the full spectrum. We only see our own color spectrum in their range of vibration. So that's my way of thinking of synchronicity. Synchronicity is not an accident. It's an awakening. You can quote me. That's a quotable.
Yeah, I like that, actually. Yeah, and you trademark that. That is a good, absolutely, very, very. I love that. Well, really, is people don't pay attention to the signs of synchronicity around them. I, y- that's just what my take. That's what I feel is truth for me. But
I think that's what's
and
so cool about us tarot folks and other oracle folks and we are people who have dedicated ourselves to developing the awareness and the skills to tap more into the synchronicity that's around us all the time. So, yoo-hoo, yay to us.
yeah, and we're making this is all about, like I said, thank you, Mayans, for letting us live on. We weren't going to get off the hook that easy. We weren't going to go because we have worked and we're like, Katrina, what you're doing, I feel, and being the pioneer and everything, you're going to make you're going to be a part of making that big difference, the shift that's going on. So we all come together, talking about Union. I love Union and all that. I adore him, adore everything about what I wanted to be a Union psychoanalyst at one time. But the thing of it is, we all are connected. We're all we need, and so anything to do with what your work is and what our work is, everybody has a little bit of something that we need to all come together to make the difference of making things a much honest and be okay about being honest.
Yeah, and my words for that would be each of us, my hope is that each of us, and everything I'm dedicated to writing, by the way, if you ever go to my web blog, it's called
Yes,
mysacredjourney.org.
it's excellent
And
too, by
that's
the
one
way.
word,
Yeah.
mysacredjourney.org, O-R-G. And everything I write about is hopefully, to inspire you to be your most authentic self and to really align with your soul purpose. In fact, my last two blog posts are a two-parter, and the first one is called What is Desire? And the second one is How to Fulfill Your Soul Purpose. And I give you some really great ideas about how to do that and some of the folks who've influenced me. And it goes beyond just tarot work. It's for anybody. And I think us as tarot people are, let's say, for those of us who choose to, there's this really big spiritual calling to align and support and help other people to also get in touch with their soul purpose and then to work on their vision and to really
Yeah.
ground it with a goals and plans like a coach. And so I know for me, that's what I do. I help people discover their vision. I help people actually write it out and create those affirmations, and I help them ground it and create real plans and real goals and things that are doable in bite-sized pieces. So sometimes I look like a mentor, sometimes I look like a coach, and sometimes I do look like a counselor. So I can kind of wear all those hats. And those are some of the things I touch upon in various classes that I teach. I mean, some of the classes I teach aren't necessarily tarot classes, but they always have a beautiful overlap with them. But one thing I've done, I'm very excited about, and I want to make sure I share this with everybody, is because this is like a brand new announcement to the world. After years and years of receiving emails from folks from all over the world wondering if they could how do they get into my Transformative Tarot Counseling Certification Program? Well, that was designed because local people, meaning people in the state of Oregon, a few other places, were asking me to teach them the more advanced skills that I use. And so because of that, I developed this program, but it just didn't translate as let's just say, as a teleseminar. And so I've been waiting for the technology and opportunities to come together where I could share knowledge, but also make it experiential, right? And yet accessible to more people. So I have combined forces with Global Spiritual Studies, which is an amazing website for different courses, everything with Mary Greer and Kathleen Matthews, and it covers a variety of different topics and ideas and resources. And what we're doing right now, this very week, is we're putting together what I'm calling now my Professional Tarot Consulting course. And it's made up of 10 classes, but for those who want to go through the certification program, which is the extra bonus, which is the experiential part that I'm so excited about, and the only reason I was willing to do this, is those last 8 classes basically are bundled as 4 units. And each one of those units has their own handouts, but all of them together for people who sign up for the entire course. What we're going to do for the experiential side is I have put together a private Facebook group just for the students. And I have a whole course syllabus, basically, where there's reading assignments, where there's exercises. People are going to get together in dyads and do some of these exercises together. There's also going to be discussion topics. And for those who want the certificate, there's also going to be some very simple exams, nothing too stressful, very simple. It's not college level, of course. And at the end, also those who complete the program will get a 30-minute consultation with me, really more like a mentoring, so that we can get together and say, hey, what are you really good at, and where do you want to take your professional tarot consulting career? And that is so exciting to me, because I had to do something that was very authentic for me and was interactive, because that's the way I learned. I learned that you interact with people. I learned that you model people, that you mentor. So since I can't be there physically with people to model these things, I wanted to at least get the mentoring side in and more interaction. So that I'm very excited about. It's not just a talking head kind of thing, but those who prefer to just buy the individual, let's say, units, you can still do that if you want to do your own self-study programs. But as an additional option, I'm so excited about the course, and I just put it up on my website. You can't really sign up for it yet, but you can read more about it. And if you go to tarotcounseling.org, and then you specifically look for, I have some menus at the top, and one of them says classes and program. Yeah. And the second one down is the professional tarot consulting course. And you can read all about it there.
Excellent. And it's everybody, it is excellent, because I've been looking, I haven't been distracted. I've been looking it over while you were just talking about it. I wanted to ask you about this. Is this open to, here's it goes, if you wouldn't ostracize, is it open to anybody that, or someone that is a degree, and also therapists that want to go, and also someone that just wants to go, like myself, or someone that didn't have a mentor? Like I was self-taught. I didn't have anybody. It was very it was hard for me.
Me too. It was you and I were about the same age, and I went through the same thing you did. I felt kind of isolated. My whole learning curve was kind of slow in the beginning, because I was relying on books, and even those were difficult to find. So this is definitely designed for anyone who's interested, all levels. In other words, experienced people would benefit from it because it's unique perspective, and also some of the classes I've added to it, as well as beginners. That's why I've offered the first little 3-class package is for beginners, but even advanced people would benefit from my unique perspective on beginning level material. But it's not required, because I know some people have a lot of experience and they don't want to repeat some of those things. So it's open to everybody, even people who are interested in doing oracular work, whether it's be with the Lenormand, because I'm teaching more counseling skills and perspectives. Some of the classes may not be appropriate for Lenormand, depending on what even the Lenormand people have different approaches to it. And so depending on what your approach is, it might be really, really good. No one's left out. Anyone who's interested can sign up, and I've actually created 3 different plans. So when you go to my website, you'll see those 3 plans, and then you can read about them and see which option is most complementary to your needs. So it's really designed to reinforce your independent learning and your unique style, but at the same time being a mentor and kind of holding your hand, or at least putting my hand on very gently on your back and helping you and supporting you as you go down your path.
I wish you were around when I was going through a mess.
Me too. I wish I were around.
But it's interesting, because people that had not, I did not, I was my own, I didn't have a mentor. The books that I didn't know were my mentors. And they weren't just tarot, it's like intense books of any sort. They were my mentors, which was great. But it was a hard journey. It was supposed to be the way it's supposed to be. But it's fascinating, because yours similarity, like you were self-taught, look at where you've come. Yes, you are a pioneer, because you know what? You put together something, I find, that you did not have the resources like this, and I think it's fantastic that you're offering and you are well suited for the you're well suited for the undertaking of doing this. And also, I think it's really great because I'm reading. Everybody, you'll be able to find this on her. Well, we have your website on your listing, but it's very easy to find. But it's very easy to read, and it's how it's all planned out. And it sounds fantastic. Really, I've never seen anything like it. And certificate program too, as well. I mean, there's a lot here.
Right,
That,
right. So there's just something, I try to make it, I believe in diversity. I'll just put it that simply. And so even when I present things, I try to definitely come from my point of view, but honor diversity and give people a variety of ways to basically to interact with the program so that they can find something that interfaces the best with their life. And before I forget, one little or two little shameless promotion things here, if it's okay.
Absolutely.
Because you asked me this, and I don't want to forget to mention it. I will be at Reader's Studio this year. Now, that's a big deal because I live out in the woods in Oregon on the West Coast. And for me to go to New York City, that's a big deal. So I will be there this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the people I've been connecting with. And I'm going to also be offering one of the Friday night study groups. And the topic is going to be 4 steps of a highly meaningful reading, plus counseling skills open tutorial. And that's really important because I'm going to put time aside for those questions, like some of the questions that are coming up here on this show, so people can, you know, instead of just listening to my program, can actually bring in questions that they brought with them, something that they've been concerned about or might even want a little supervision for. And so that, again, is very thrilling for me because it represents that the old idea of the mentoring and somebody who's looking out for you and seeing who you are and what your gifts are instead of expecting them to fit into your box. And that's the way I approach tarot, it's the way I approach counseling, and it's the way I approach teaching.
Well, you know, I'm really excited for you. And what are the dates again? You might have just said that, but I wanted to make sure. Because
Okay, well, Reader's Studio, I believe, starts, depending on what part of it you kind of get involved with. So for some folks, it starts on Wednesday. Some folks go to the special tarot and counseling classes on Thursday, and then it starts, I think it starts on Friday, which is April the 25th. Maybe it starts on Thursday the 24th. I don't have it here in front of me, but I can find it pretty quickly. And so some folks know that's through the Tarot School of New York, and it's actually technically in Queens, really close to the LaGuardia Airport. So it says April 25th to the 27th, and that's Reader's Studio. So you can find that on the internet under tarotschool.com, and then specifically look for Reader's Studio. Yeah, so that's exciting. And then the other thing is always, I've been doing this, it'll be my 18th year. I have my annual tarot retreat here in Oregon. I live way out in the woods. And it's for people who just want to unplug and go into a deeper place with their relationship with the tarot. And I have a wonderful yurt on the back of my property. People camp out. I feed people very healthy organic foods, quite a bit from my garden. I live a very simple life out here.
Oh, that sounds lovely for me to. I'll be there. I love. I do. I always can. I love. Oh, that sounds so nice and just being. Yeah. Just being. Yeah,
and that happens every year, the last weekend of July. And this year, I'm trying to do another one in Texas too. So those who, if you listen to this and you're interested in a Texas tarot retreat, contact me through my email, mail@tarotcounseling.org. I would love to put you on that list and let you know as soon as I got something solid going.
Before I have just a few minutes left, but don't you have a new book coming out too as well?
Well, it's so funny. I won't even go into all the books I've written and not necessarily published, but let's just say the first one that I published in a big way was this last one called An Introduction to Transformative Tarot Counseling, The High Art of Reading, which is also available as an Amazon Kindle, or you can order the paperback from me. But this winter, in addition to putting together this course, I'm also working on a book I actually started called The Sacred Journey of the Soul, or The Sacred Journey of Your Soul, through the Major Arcana, Volume 1. And I do mean Volume 1 because I've already got the outline for 3 other ones. And so hopefully that will be done in time for the course. That's my goal. And if nothing else, it'll be done in time for Reader Studio. Oh, and not to forget, for those of you who enjoy listening to talk radio as we're doing right now, Gina Thies and I do our own little podcast called Oracle Soup. So you can go to Facebook and find Oracle Soup, or you can find our website at oraclesoup.org. And there's lots of informative talks between Gina and myself, and occasionally with a third friend.
And they're good. I did hear some. I did, of course, listen. I have been listening to them. They're fantastic. It's fantastic. Well, Katrina, I really appreciate you joining us a lot, and I'm sure I'll connect with you again.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. It's so cool to be able to connect with the Psychic Access Talk Radio folks and great folks here in our little chat room. So thank you so much.
And thank you, and I wish you a good night, and I wish you a great, loving, merry every day. Holidays included.
All right, I'll take that. Every day is a
that.
Jolly, happy day, or at least a joyful and peaceful day, as much as we can make it. And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a great night. And I will hope to talk to you soon. Definitely.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.